Do you struggle to unplug from work, especially on vacation? Does every vacation end up in an argument between you and your spouse? I've been there more times than I care to admit, which is why I created a free checklist to help you unplug this summer. It's called 15 Ways to Effectively Unplug from Work on Vacation, and it's guaranteed to give you some fresh ideas for detaching and enjoying your vacation. Head over to KarenFreeland.com/work free vacation right now and get these 15 secrets. It's totally free and it will get you one step closer to living a more present and fulfilling life. Welcome to Rock Your Reinvention, where I help high-achieving career women like you get unstuck, make your corporate exit strategy, and successfully transition to your next chapter. Hi, I'm your host, Karen Freeland, a certified life reinvention coach and corporate exit strategist. Whether you want to start a business, become a speaker, or something else, I'm here to give you the tools and strategies to shift your mindset, build your confidence, and take bold actions so you can rock your reinvention. Ready? Let's go. Is your self-identity holding you back? Hey friends, I've got another mind-shifting topic for you today. I want to shake things up and really start inviting you to think more deeply about your identity and how it might be helping or hindering you. And more specifically, focusing on the hindrance today. So let's start out with, what is identity? Well, it's usually answering the question of, who am I? That might be the set of qualities, the beliefs, the personality traits. Some people will think about things related to their appearance, perhaps, their abilities or inabilities, expressions that characterize a person. There's lots of different things that get wrapped up into our identity. I found this really great list on Verywell Mind. So, of course, you can go to verywellmind.com and check it out. But, they talk about, are you healthy? Are you not? Do you have something specific going on? That could be mental health or physical health, education, your profession, your ethnicity, your race, your peer group, the kinds of people that you're surrounded by, your socioeconomic status, your gender, your sexuality, your religion or lack thereof, your interests, your hobbies, the things that you love to do. I mean, the list goes on, right? Your values, your beliefs, your memories, all these things can be comprised of your identity. And obviously, you're naturally going to put some weight on certain things more than others, right? Like, obviously, for me, or maybe not obviously, but I think it's obvious, I'm a mom, and that is a big piece of my identity. Now, it is not all of my identity, right? I don't only identify as a mom. That would have a lot of, for me, negative consequences, right? That would maybe not allow me to do a lot of the things that I get to do in my business if I was only identifying as a mom. But it's certainly one of the things that makes me unique and makes me different from others and allows me to keep things in perspective. So as you're thinking about your own identity, I want you to think about what makes you unique. How do you see yourself as different and standing out from the crowd when you think about your identity as it relates to others? The other thing I found in doing a little bit of research for today's episode was that identity relates heavily to our basic values, those table stakes, right? The morality and the way we kind of see the world, because they dictate the choices that we make, right? I mean, think about it. Whether you're going to go to graduate school or not, right? I didn't go to graduate school because it wasn't something I valued. A lot of my family didn't get that level of education. The fact that I just even got a college degree was pretty great. That wasn't something that our family valued. It wasn't something I personally valued. So I didn't bother to go get my MBA or do any of that. Now, you come from a different family, you have a different value around education. You might be like, I can't imagine living without my MBA. I can't imagine not going to graduate school because that is something that you value so deeply. And I think it's important for us to recognize our values and the role that it plays in our identity. And this is sometimes also a place where identity is really helpful, right? Because if you have that strong identity and you know what's important to you, you're going to make great choices that align with your values. I mean, that is something to be celebrated. That is awesome. We all want that. But over the course of my various life reinventions, and it's not just this most recent one that I've been through, and we'll unpack that a little bit today, but I started out as a dancer and as an actress after college. I was following my dreams, and I had to reinvent myself into a corporate professional. And from there, I had to reinvent myself into a senior leader in the business. And I had to reinvent myself to an entrepreneur. So there's been so many different reinventions in my life. And maybe you can relate to that. Maybe you've been through several yourself. And so the question becomes, is our identity static? Is it finite or permanent? And I would wager that you probably just said, no, Karen, of course it's not static. My identity is changing all the time. But I also would bet that if we looked at some of your actions, you might be behaving in the opposite way. So you say that your identity isn't static and that it could change, and yet your identity and the way you are thinking of yourself right now is exactly what's holding you back. It's exactly what's keeping you stuck because you put so much value into that you forgot to be flexible, that you forgot that your identity could change over time. Okay, let's just look at how, again, a strong identity can help you because it's not always a bad thing to have a strong identity. For example, let's take the mom thing again because, that's one that I hear from a lot of my clients. If you identify as a mom, you're probably going to make choices that prioritize your family and children. And obviously, that could be a really good thing because your kids are going to feel loved. Your spouse is going to feel cared for. You're going to help the household run so much more seamlessly, and you're going to keep it all together. And everyone is going to show their love and appreciation because they feel it from you. And I know we don't always feel it in the way we want to feel it, but trust me, they love you and they appreciate everything you are doing, even if it's not until they get older. Having a strong sense of self also helps you to say no more easily and set the boundaries that you need to set because you already know what's a good fit for you and what isn't. Right? If someone came to me tomorrow and they're like, Karen, we have this amazing opportunity for you, and you have to pick up your whole family and move to Alaska, and it's very cold there, and your kids have to change schools yet again. They've been in, 5 schools in 5 years ish. It was very hectic time for a while. That immediately I'd be like, nope, can't do it. It doesn't matter how good the opportunity is. I am not picking up my family and moving them again. We're going to be here for at least the foreseeable 5-10 year future. And that's okay. That's great because that would be the right decision for me and for my family because I have that strong identity as a mom. Now, on the flip side, a very strong identity can also hinder you. If you identify as a working mom, then you may struggle if you decide or have these feelings and emotions that you want to leave corporate or that you want to become a stay-at-home mom because it is in direct conflict with your self-imposed identity. Now, you might have caught that word self-imposed right there. That is the operative word, and that's a really important thing to pick up on. Not all identities are self-imposed. Some are foisted on us, sometimes from others. But in so many cases, this identity is something that we created for ourselves out of thin air, or we latched onto at one point, and we have just gone all in and been like, this is my identity. And that's the only thing that we really identify with. And I can't tell you how many women I see struggle when they come to me for coaching and they want to make a change or they want to pivot and they're like, but I can't, but I'm the busy go-getter. I'm the one that does it all. I'm the mom who works like a dog. And, of course, they're not always using those words, but that's basically what they're saying. 24/7 and I'm always accessible. And like, that's just me. That's how I've always done it. And I'm like, yeah, but just because that was your identity at one point in your life and it might have served you for a period of time doesn't mean that has to be your identity going forward. And even from there, it's like, what is the fear underneath of changing that identity? So what if you weren't a working mom anymore? What, like, does that somehow make you less valuable? What happens? What is the fear that is underneath that identity change? So let me give you an example that actually has nothing to do with work at all, but I very strongly illustrates the point from my life. So let's go way back to my dancing days, right? I met my husband in college and I was a dancer. I went to school for dance. I had competed in dance pretty much my whole life. I think I started when I was like 7 or 9 years old. I don't know, very young. When I started dancing, I started competitions around sixth, seventh grade, something like that. And, danced professionally then, even after college, did some things. So, like, that was my identity. And my boyfriend at the time, now husband, only knew me as a dancer. And that was one of the things that he would always brag about me to his friends about, like, oh, she's such an awesome dancer. You should see her, like, whatever, right? That was kind of his thing that was one of the pieces that really attracted him to me. I remember asking him, I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this, but I remember asking him, I was like, when did you know that you like loved me? Not just lusted after me or thought I was cute or whatever. Like you really loved me. And he was like, the first time I saw you dance. So talk about having that implanted in me as a very big piece of my identity. And not just my identity, but literally why this man loves me is because he saw me dance. And then one day I was like, I don't think I want to pursue dancing anymore. I don't think that this is in my future for a career. And I like doing it a little bit on the side, but I mean, it's not a very big piece of my identity anymore. Is he still going to love me? Is he even going to want to be with me anymore? Is he going to leave me for another dancer? Like, there were a lot of feelings and emotions that circled around in my head for weeks and months as I sort of agonized over this decision about what I was going to do with my dance career. And I remember finally sitting him down and being like, we have to talk, and like sharing with him this whole thing about me being a dancer and not wanting to really do it anymore. And was he still going to love me? And of course, he's looking at me like I have 10 heads. Like, yes, I love you. Are you crazy? Like, I don't only love you for that reason. But when those ideas are so deeply implanted in us and we feel like it's such a big piece of our identity, it can keep us trapped in something that we no longer love or that no longer serves us because we are afraid that we're going to lose the people who are around us that care about us or that we think care about us. And sometimes when we make an identity shift, believe me, there will be people who leave your side. There will be people, oh my gosh, when I left corporate, it was like immediately overnight, I was dead to half my network. They wanted nothing to do with me, right? Because I could no longer help them get ahead. I no longer had any pull in the organization. I really had no value for them. So there were hundreds of people who dropped me like a bad habit, didn't engage with any of my social stuff anymore, didn't respond to my messages on LinkedIn. Like I just literally, it was like I didn't even exist anymore. And don't get me wrong. I mean, that sucks, right? That hurt in the short term. But when I really think about it, well, they were never my friend anyway. They never cared about me in the first place anyway. They were either using me or I was just a convenience. It was maybe just out of, I don't know, niceties. And now because we were coworkers and now they're like, oh, she don't work with me. I don't have to be nice to her anymore. Who knows what it was? It doesn't really matter. The point is, I would have let those people hold me back when they're not even there for me, the real me going forward. It would have been such a waste of energy. It would have been such a hindrance to my growth. And the same thing could be happening to you right now if you have too closely latched on to a piece of your identity and maybe something that was self-imposed. You created this whole idea, this whole identity for yourself to make yourself feel better. And you don't even need to have that identity because maybe there's a different piece of your puzzle, your identity puzzle, that you could lean into more, that would give you even a bigger sense of satisfaction and purpose in your life. Some other things to think about, right? Because money and finances, I just did that episode on setting yourself up to financially leave corporate. And I know that so many of the high six-figure earning women that I work with, their paychecks become a very big piece of their identity. And don't get me wrong, that is an amazing accomplishment, right? When you're making $150,000, $300,000, $900,000 a year, like that is a huge accomplishment. And would never take that away from anyone, okay? I celebrate you. And you're still not your paycheck. I mean, think about it. I took a pay cut when I left corporate. Am I less valuable now than I was when I worked in corporate? I would hope you would say no. I don't feel any less valuable. In fact, I feel even more valuable because of the kind of work and the impact that I get to have on people around me. But that title, that paycheck, none of that was my true identity. Yeah, it was a surface level identity for a while. It was just a way to classify me amongst others, but it wasn't truly anything to do with who I was on the inside and deep down, my purpose and what my creator made me to be. That was never a piece of the puzzle. So for you, I want you to start thinking about, how do you identify yourself? Take out a sheet of paper and just start listing out all the ways that you currently identify yourself. And then I want you to take out a fresh sheet of paper. And I want you to think about how you want to identify yourself. If you could start over from scratch, completely reconstruct your identity, what would you like it to be? I know one of the things that my coach and I worked on when I was first making this whole transition into business owner was that I wanted more love and connection in my life. I was always fighting for significance, always fighting to stand out from the crowd. And I wanted to start connecting and belonging more and having more genuine connections, more deeper friendships and relationships with the people around me, and fewer surface ones. And so that was a big piece that needed to shift of my identity. I really needed to start identifying as somebody who craves love and connection and who creates time for that in her schedule. So then the third piece of this self-reflection, now that you know how you've been identifying yourself up to today, now you know how you want to identify yourself going forward, I want you to think about, what would you need to change today in order for you to start identifying as your true self tomorrow? Really give yourself permission to go deep, to challenge your thinking, to make yourself a little uncomfortable, because it's going to feel a little strange, right? Especially if you're talking about big things like leaving your six-figure paycheck and starting a business or becoming a speaker or a coach, right? Those are big, massive shifts. Maybe you're thinking about leaving the current company you're at and trying a completely different industry because it's what really excites you. Again, big shift. Smaller things like, okay, I just want to be a kinder person, right? Like I really want to identify as someone who's kind and generous and giving. And so maybe you decide, what would need to change is I would need to be in less of a rush and actually hold the door for people, or I would need to take a minute and, smile at people at the grocery store or help someone to their car who's elderly or something. Take a few extra minutes. That is a definite change, but it's not as radical, right? It's not going to feel as uncomfortable to think about those things. Now, that doesn't make your identity shift any more or less valuable or more or less important. It just means it might actually be easier for you to change and make those shifts, which is great. You might not feel as uncomfortable as some of our friends who are like, oh no, I want to blow up my life and completely change or move to a different country or whatever it is that you've been dreaming about, but your identity has been holding you back from doing. And this is something that I think has to ebb and flow with the seasons of your lives because whether I like it or not, in a few years, my kids are going to be grown and out of the house, and I'm going to have to shift my identity from that mompreneur to something else because my kids aren't going to take the time and energy that they need right now in that season of life, and I'm going to have a lot more time and energy for other things. My identity is going to shift again. And what if I decide I don't want to speak or coach someday? I mean, I don't see that happening, but you never know. Then what? If I wrap up my entire identity into this business that I've created, I'm right back where I was when I was in corporate with an identity that's holding me back from exploring the future possibilities. So, yes, it's a piece of my identity, but it's not the whole thing. So let me leave you with just a couple of reminders, and then I want you to go take the time to pull out those sheets of paper and do your self-reflection. Again, you can listen to my episodes all day long, and I appreciate that you do. Thank you for being here. But just listening alone is not enough. You've got to do the work and put in the time, the journaling, the self-reflection, all of that to really experience the transformation. So reminders. You have the power to choose your identity. You don't need anyone else's permission to change it. You are 100% in control of your identity, and you have the power to shift it and change it. And that may also, and I didn't think of this before, but that may also require some rebranding, right? And I had to do a lot of rebranding of my identity on social media as I started this business and I pivoted away from my corporate existence because that's how everybody knew me. And all of a sudden I had to show them, no, I'm an author. No, I'm a speaker. No, I'm a coach. And that takes some time. And so one of the things I love helping my clients with too is the personal branding aspect as they're going through these pivots. How do we need to show up and present ourselves to the marketplace? So you have the power to choose your identity. It is changing with the seasons, and that's okay. You may need to just market yourself a little bit differently as you're going through this pivot. And your choices and your changes are not permanent. You can always go back to an old identity if the new one you created isn't serving you. So, like, if I want to go back to my corporate life someday, which again, I can't fathom it right now, but if I wanted to, I could do that. That would be absolutely okay. And the funny thing is, if you had told me 10 years ago that I was going to want to start my own business someday, I would have been like, what have you been smoking? Like, no, not a chance in hell. I would never start my own business. I mean, that was not even on my radar. Okay. So trust me, like sometimes you may think this is my identity. I'm sold on it. I'm going all in. And then all of a sudden something changes in your life. And next thing you know, you're like, oh, wait, what's going on? It can feel very earth shattering to be like, that's not the identity I want anymore. Oh my gosh, what's happening? Right. And it can feel a little catastrophic at times, but I promise you it's not. And those feelings and those signals are leading you towards your purpose. Those are the clues you need to start getting unstuck and moving in the right direction. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for you to design your new self identity so that you no longer have to be held back, so that you can know exactly what you want in this season of life and get after it. All right, go do your self reflection. How do you identify with yourself today? How do you want to identify yourself in the future? And what needs to change right now in order for you to identify as your true self? You figure that out, and you are going to be on the right path to living your purpose and rocking your reinvention. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you're inspired to take action by committing to one of the tips or strategies we talked about in today's episode. If you want more accountability and support, I've got your back. Book a complimentary Empowered Exit Strategy call today. Visit KarenFreeland.com to learn more and book your 45-minute session. Until next time, stay fabulous.